Hello and welcome to this CEDEF panel, The Green Office and Hybrid Work, What is Next? So I'm really extremely happy to present this international panel and have this conversation on a real international topic. To our audience, wherever you are, feel free to interact, post questions and comments and in the chat. And we'll get to them right after we have our discussion, so immediately after. Well, a special and warm greetings to our panelists. Let me start with Galina. Hello, Galina, how are you today?
Excellent. Greetings to everyone from Sofia.
Thanks. Great that you're here today with us. Galina G.Chuleva is in fact the Chief Human Resources Officer at Telenor, Bulgaria. So happy to have you. Cristian, how are you, Cristian?
Hello, hello. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you for your invitation. I'm ready to share my expertise with all of you. Greetings from Bucharest. It's a rainy day, but we have, let's say, a high spirit to share with you all these topics. Thank you very much for invitation.
That's right. You can never keep a good man down. Weather is definitely not one of those things.
Exactly.
We go back a long way, I think 15 years, Cristian, and always been a pleasure working with you. Cristian Vasiliu is the Managing Director at the Romanian Facility Management Association, ROFMA, which actually does a lot more than the name says. So I'm sure we'll get to find out. And also we have Pauline here, and lovely to have you. Hi, Pauline.
Hello, hi, thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
Pauline is French, she's a digital nomad, and she's Pauline Roussel, the Chief Executive Officer at Coworkies. The name says it quite a lot, and she's a researcher and author of a very interesting book with a lovely name, Around the World in 250 Co-working Spaces. And right now, calling from Berlin. I think we're having a little bit of a bad network at the moment. And I hope I'm back now.
Yeah, we hear you.
I thought we had a technical glitch, but okay. Hopefully we're back now. And linking us from over here in Belgrade in CEDEF, Central European Development Forum, which is Think and Do Tank, almost 20 years old. And I'll be your host today. My name is A.Bovan. I have an experience and a career which combines business and education and civic engagement, and I'm a founder of CEDEF. So happy to kick off on this today. And one more reminder, we have another location that's relevant to this, and we are holding this panel in a very fitting environment. And this is the event, which is called a Circular Week, organized by Innovo, which is a Polish organization that has very similar values like CEDEF has, so we're very happy to do this together with them. So let's look at the rationale why we're actually doing this panel, and let's just focus on this. I think we're going to have now also another panelist join us right now. Let me have her into the okay. Christina, are we together now, Christina?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Great, we can hear you, and hopefully we will see you soon as well. Looking forward to that.
Yes, yes, just give me a few minutes, okay?
No problem.
I'm with you.
You nevertheless. Good to have you, Christina. Kristina Mamato is the acting Secretary General at the National Confederation of Entrepreneurs of the Republic of Azerbaijan, and she's in this amazing city of Baku. If you haven't been there, you should all go there. Baku is just a place, and Christina has the pleasure of working with many different organizations, and I'm sure that she can also contribute to the conversation. So we were focused at what is really the rationale for us for doing this discussion today. And so that we can all be kind of more clear and make sure that we come out with the results we wanted to have. So the goal is really to learn from each other, from all of our experiences, and to, at the same time, see what the differences are, so that we can, in a way, integrate this into the green strategies of our office spaces. Why are we doing this? So we can achieve actually more green buildings in which our green offices are, within our company strategies. So green buildings, so we can help cutting down the pollution, because we know how much construction and buildings contribute to pollution. So we have more sustainability in our future development. So in that sense, we are clearly on a goal to improve the quality of life and work of the people. So this is kind of the cascade of goals and practical steps that we hope that this panel can be actually a useful instrument in creating some innovative thinking to achieve some of these goals, whichever level they are. So in order to do that, we need to really understand how we are working now and to anticipate how we might be working in the future so we can achieve some of these goals. So Galina, may I start with a round of questions with you? So how has the pandemic impacted those green office strategies that all of our companies have by actually increasing remote and hybrid work? We've got a bit less commute, business travel and flights, and all of the utilities. How is that actually impacting Telenor's green office strategy?
Let me start by this, that our company has a long-term interest in investment in sustainability. We have gone through a number of ownership changes, but regardless of who's the owner, we've always had a strong green sustainability, and now really upping the game to ESG agenda to announce very, very shortly. But with that, we have been tracking and measuring our basically impact on the environment. So I'll give you a very specific answer to your question and then go into a little bit of some of the tendencies we see. So from what we have been tracking, Telenor Bulgaria's carbon footprint has been reduced by 10% in 20 versus 19. Our fuel consumption, we have a very large fleet to serve all of our customers just by the nature of our business, which is telecommunications, by the way, and servicing our network. So 25% reduction in fuel, basically consumption. International travel, we've always been part of international groups, so lots of that close to zero, for quite a long time. So really, really sizable impact. And this is just one organization. I think as a normal consumer, we also, only within a few weeks of the lockdown, all of the reports highlighted, positive impact on air quality, on water. So very clear connection between everyday activities. So I commute, air travel on this. So I think what the basically pandemic has showed us is really opened up a lot of possibilities. And before maybe we knew this is the right thing to do, and a lot of companies were at the forefront investing. I think the pandemic gave us more confidence to be even braver, to up our ambitions on sustainability, because we saw it's doable. It's actually, very little of productivity suffering. There are other aspects we need to monitor, like company culture and so on. But I think it's opened the door to more possibilities and bigger ambitions.
Great, and you will already have good results. So you're clearly on a great path. Christian, you're working daily with so many organizations, not only in Romania, because you're very well placed on the international stage as one of the leading organizations that deals with companies and spaces, and it's multifaceted. I think it's quite fascinating when we were talking about this many months ago in preparation for this, how wide reach your organization has, which means there is a lot of knowledge that can be, a lot of peer-to-peer thinking and sharing that we can learn from you. So what do you see happening from your experience?
First of all, let me tell you that pandemic offered us, and I'm referring now to the facility management community professionals, the opportunity to show everybody how relevant we are, because we are administrating, maintaining, operating buildings. So more or less, we are dealing with the second most important cost center in an organization. And if we are talking about sustainability, if we are talking about green buildings, the facility managers are managing these buildings. The facility managers are trying to do this building more efficient. So more or less, this is our activity. On the other hand, of course, in the pandemic, and I'm talking now about not just Romania, but maybe, let's say, all around the world. The office market and the organizations, generally speaking, have already started to develop strategies, resizing and rebalancing their offices to adapt the needs in a post-COVID world. Of course, we are talking about working from home, of course, but you have to take into consideration also that we cannot close all the buildings, office buildings. All the office buildings, even if now are, let's say, maybe 60–70% empty, because the people are working from home. All these buildings must be managed by facility managers. So it's not just about managing these buildings, but it's also about, let's say, raising some other quite interesting questions. If 60–70% of the workers are working from home, are their houses, are their flats sustainable? If we are, let's say, trying to reduce some, let's say, indicators in our office buildings. Generally speaking, at least in Romania, more and more are Class A green buildings, certificated offices. But what about their houses? What about their flats? So we have to be more careful in, let's say, suggesting that working from home, meaning that, let's say, we will be more sustainable. We have to see the entire picture. We have to see that resizing and rebalancing our needs, our organizational needs, we can adapt in this post-COVID world.
That's right. Adaptation is actually a very important word in well, all of the strategies of life, but especially something like this. You're absolutely right. Kristina, may I ask you, what is the experience with all of the organizations that you're working with? You're the very center of what's happening in Azerbaijan, and clearly wider area as well, but especially there. Has pandemic changed the way people work, offices, hybrid work? What's going on?
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for inviting, first of all. I'm glad to participate here today. And you see, I'm still on the way. This is the impact of pandemic. I am now not in my own office, but in a different office because I have some meetings. And yes, the situation has changed a lot. We did even monitoring during pandemic. We had really lockdown, and we had to shift all our communication with our members, with entrepreneurs, to online tools like even WhatsApp, Facebook, and so on. We organized a lot of trainings, we organized a lot of webinars, and we had to manage our services online fully from home. Then we had shifts at work. Some part of the team would work from the office, some part from the home. We had some quotas, and we spoke to the entrepreneurs. I have to say it depends very much on the sector. Where the company is involved. In small, medium enterprises, they have been more flexible, more adaptive. With the large companies, especially with the production and industry, heavy industry, it was to some extent not possible at all to adapt to new situation, and there were some we did monitoring, we worked on public-private dialogue, and we involved the government authorities as well to support these companies in order to keep their trends. When we speak about services, yes, the companies involved in services were quite adaptive. The companies in tourism, they tried to do something, they tried to survive, but unfortunately they had really challenging timing. I have to say, I would like also to add the issue not only about the infrastructure, the buildings, the internet access, but also the system, the human resources management and strategy towards that. digitalization of staff, employees. Not everybody is ready to adapt. It is not easy to do everything online. I have to say, when we had meetings, I felt it myself as well. We have, for example, meeting after meeting, yeah, and people say, it's no problem, you will have time, you don't have to travel from one hotel to another and so on. But in fact, it is a huge loading of information on a person. Yes, you have 3 times more meetings during a day at least, and you have a lot of information that you have to somehow to process. Yeah, I realized myself that even going on the way to a hotel, to a venue of meeting, for example, at least you have some distractions, you look outside, you rest a bit. And I think these are very important issues to discuss, to raise. Being digital does not mean that everything can go digital right away. It takes time, it takes efforts, it takes learning process.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Christina.
Thank you.
Interesting, and let's continue with Pauline. You are aware of what's happening with offices, but also co-working spaces, which is the best friend of office spaces. So, a bit of insight from you on how the pandemic has impacted the office strategies, and how is that impacting the co-working spaces?
I think overall for co-working spaces over the world, the adaptation to the pandemic has been really different, because we have to understand that co-working in certain regions is very unknown, at least by authorities. So in certain cases, co-working is not even identified as a certain type of business. So the way you would say you are a hotel business, or like Kristina said earlier, you come from the hotel or hospitality industry, this is very well marked. Whereas for co-working in certain regions of the world, they fit nowhere. So in the pandemic, this has played good and bad. Good in the sense that because they are not an office per se, they were also not a hotel. They didn't fit in in any of the regulations. And for instance, I'm thinking about Portugal, because we spoke a lot with spaces from Portugal who were saying that because there were no regulations from the government targeted at co-working spaces, they were able to somehow stay open for their members. So of course, during the hard lockdown, the first one, everybody shut down, but afterwards the rules for them were softer. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, not recognized as a certain type of businesses, they couldn't get any support from the government in terms of funding, which was, and this is the case in many regions of the world. And this was really hard because, as everybody watching this now might know, co-working spaces are physical spaces. So as every other physical type of buildings, they've been very impacted by the pandemic. They also couldn't open their doors, especially during the first lockdown. A lot of their business model relies on event management or event organization. They couldn't do that. So I think especially again, the first lockdown was really hard for them. Afterwards, they started to adapt. I think one of the main things co-working spaces have realized is that through the pandemic, that they had tremendous value to their community, thanks to the physical space, but also thanks to the content that they're putting out there. So what we've seen is that more and more co-working spaces started to invest efforts in how can you keep in touch and close to your members and your co-workers by doing what you are doing in the physical space, but bring it online. So a lot of operators have been working in that direction. And what's really interesting now is that because they are back to where they were at before, meaning people can return to their offices and to their space, they are trying to also understand how they can combine both. So how can they keep going the physical space, but also don't let the online activities they've been doing during the pandemic die, but actually continue what they were doing previously, so they can add value to more communities. So to people who can use their space on a daily basis, but also to people who use their space very sporadically.
That's right. I think we're going to see definitely a growth and more innovation in co-working spaces. Let's see about the change. Clearly, we're all living through faster and faster changes, and adaptation, as we mentioned, is crucially very important. So how do you think that office work and office spaces where we actually conduct our work are going to change on a kind of a bigger scale? Maybe Cristian, can we start with you?
Thank you. So there are two pillars, or at least we see as facility management and workplace management professionals, we see two main pillars, or maybe two faces of the same, of only one coin. I'm talking about digital transformation, and I'm talking also about workplace revolution through workplace management. Anyhow, managers are still exploring their new post-pandemic way of working, with the mix between office and remote work being decided from company to company. So they are considering their real estate needs with caution, and we have to take into consideration that this, let's say, new trend. And some are seeing a need for a lower footprint, office footprint in the future due to the hybrid work model. So we are facing a lower demand in the overall market. Also, just one example, according to an international study made by Styrixis Group from Greece, half of organizations are working to redefine their post-pandemic office design due to this workplace revolution, as I told you. At the same time, 1 out of 10 companies will be reducing or discarding, let's say, physical workplaces altogether in the immediate future. So this will cause a major disruption in real estate business and real estate development. 1 out of 3 companies will remodel offices to adapt to new needs, with larger organizations leading the way. So I see now, and now I'm talking about threats, because it's important to identify these threats and try then to find solutions. So it's important that these major threats are how to redefine processes and optimize new work models. Also deal with workplace safety. This is very important, still very important, workplace safety. And of course, how to, let's say, choose new sustainability targets, considering the new concepts of work from home and work from anywhere.
I see. Thanks very much. These quite a few fundamental things that you mentioned here. Galina, you had a comment, and let's look into this issue. May I just point out, this is really interesting because we're looking at this question from a specific point of view, which is more green strategies for companies, and we could have looked at it from several other positions. Some of them you mentioned already within your interventions, Cristian, you, Galina, Pauline, and Kristina as well. And that's productivity, that's health, as something that we started the pandemic with. Concerns of health were the ones why we had to social distance, but also socialization, creativity, and a generation of innovation that happens when people are together. Also mental well-being. These are all the issues that have to do commuting with living and working together within an office space, and how we do this, but also talent acquisition, long life learning, all of this promotion, wages, salaries. This is all being discussed as so many aspects of how we do work. And we are choosing one alley, but clearly there are many things that are involved in this. So let's get back, Galina, to some of your comments, and please answer this if you may. Thank you.
I will gladly. The comment I wanted to make earlier is actually to stress something that Cristian brought earlier. I was talking how this transition to hybrid, it's it's happening, it's real. So companies are gonna pick different maybe elements of it. No one size fits all approach, but it is there. It opens up opportunities, but at the same time, things are not as straightforward. What he said is quite important, that even home office, remote work, it has its green costs, so to say, because I sit at home, I have several more devices, switched on, streaming. So that is, has energy impact. So actually, what is very interesting is we're seeing in our, especially in big companies, new roles within the organizations evolve or emerge, like ESG or sustainability managers, directors, who are exactly looking into this, the synergies between the physical and the remote activities of the organization, and how to bring it together in really sustainable way, not just to touch the surface. But continuing to what you were saying, Anna, fully agree with everything. Christian brought opportunities to redesign office space, make it maybe more collaborative, less individual desks and workspaces, more opportunity for fluid interaction, collaboration, but lots of things happening on the organizational development HR front. We're rethinking leadership, for example. How do you integrate? How do you lead? How do you engage remote teams, hybrid teams? It was one thing, at the beginning of the pandemic when we were forced to do it. Companies like mine, for example, were very lucky because we had for years in place home office policies, culture, tools, so for us it was very easy, but a few months down the road, you're starting to onboard new people. It's easy when you know everybody and you just work on the phone on the crisis. Several months down the road, you have new people, you have your people, but really stressed. So working remotely, you need to be very, acute to that and sense, how your the well-being of your team and how do you motivate them. I mentioned new roles are emerging in the organization, like the employee experience, so that it's equitable, whether you work from home, whether you work physically. ESG managers, sustainability managers, rethinking talent pools. You were saying about that, it opens up for organizations the opportunity to hire, maybe not only from Sofia, the city I'm sitting in where my company is located. However, again, you need to invest in onboarding properly. You need to invest in the proper technologies. So it's really the whole landscape of the workplace is changing massively. And again, I want to stress this, opportunities are there, but really depending on the industry, also to what I think Kristina was talking about earlier, industries are different, roles even within the same industry or company are different. Some are more prone and easily or an individual contributors, others that require brainstorming, creativity, they're face-to-face. The value of that interaction is really huge. So lots of things to learn, continue to learn.
That's right. This is again a big topic that has so many wide repercussions on every level. Let's look into your experience also. How do you think that office work will change, Kristina, and the office spaces? How do you see that happening with small and large companies that you are dealing with in Baku and in the whole of Azerbaijan, clearly?
Frankly speaking, I see it in a full hybrid way, so to say, when digital access is fully implemented, in the ideal case, of course, when digital access to internet, to the networks is provided. For this, all the companies must be ready for digitalization and for bringing all their databases, all their procedures in a systematic online way. Cloud system is important. Server is important, depending, of course, on the procedures of the company. And I have to say, in our country, unfortunately, we still have the issue with good quality internet access in the regions. Yeah, it is very good from one side that people can access, people can work from anywhere they are. Like, I can join the meeting today, although I'm not in the office. But it is also an issue, a technical issue for some people who want to do that but cannot have access. Yeah,
that's right. So the is a precondition, clearly.
Yes.
Also, the equitable presence, as Galina, you mentioned, then it gets everybody on the same level, but you need to get there first.
Absolutely. Yes. Additionally, there's also the ability of people to transfer their work to online sphere. The ability of people to present their results, for example, online, or to show it, or to communicate online. That's also, I see it as a big issue, frankly speaking.
That's right. It's also, you need some training as well. It's the new normal that we need to get ready to
Definitely.
live a long time, obviously. Pauline, from your experience and clearly managing to visit and work with so many co-working spaces around the world, did you manage to hit all of the continents, or is this for only a few?
If there was no COVID, we would probably have managed.
Yeah.
To add on what everyone has been saying, I think from what we see, we live in very interesting times, because office going up until the pandemic, things were starting to change, but of course not at this pace. I think the pandemic, what has the pandemic brought to the office life in general is that it has accelerated maybe times 10 or 20, what would have probably taken so much more time for it to happen. We have been forced to change, where before, you know, we often say to companies we work with, when you feel too comfortable, you don't have a reason for changing. And I think the pandemic really pushed all companies of whatever size to rethink their workspace strategy in general. What's interesting though is that now, especially in big cities where you have very big buildings, which right now are maybe less leased because companies are reducing, also in terms of footprint, they're reducing the square meters, they're renting, they're adapting their strategies and revamping their teams, giving them more freedom. I think what's interesting there is to notice that buildings are going to be given new purposes. So what if the office is not just the office? You know, like you can start to include living spaces within those offices. You can transform them into art spaces, into co-working spaces, into living spaces where community life happens. So beyond just the office. That's one of the things we see. I think co-working also has a big role to play in this, because although it's still kind of a niche market, I believe a lot more companies are looking at what co-working has been doing up until now to understand how they can use the principles of co-working, but also this community-driven approach to workplace and this experience at work. So, you know, like the Dolly Parton song, the 9 to 5, kind of get rid of this and give more freedom, but also give them another reason to come to work than just having to be at the office. And I think there is a lot companies can learn about that from co-working in general. And another thing I also wanted to point out is that it's interesting to see that internet is a big problem, because my internet right now, and I'm in Germany, so you would think Germany has great internet, but I see it's not good. It's pretty awful, and I'm sorry about that. But actually, Germany as a country is going through a very big problem regarding internet, because big cities don't have good internet, but remote areas have terrible internet. So the pandemic has secluded and has put a strain on many people who do not live in big cities just because of their internet connection. So it was hard not only on people who work, but also on families, because their children couldn't access places like school, or couldn't do school the way they should. On the other side, I also live in Bulgaria, in Plovdiv, where the internet is amazing. It's really fast. It's one of the fastest internet in Europe. And you can see that in Bulgaria, for instance, remote work wouldn't be difficult just because the infrastructure for internet is amazing. And that's also why in Bulgaria, you have quite a few co-working spaces that are not just in Sofia. They're also starting, I'm thinking, for instance, about Bansko, or you even have co-working spaces in other regions, in the mountains or on the seaside, which is more remote, but the infrastructure of Bulgaria is great for that. It allows for offices to start to go beyond the big cities. And in Germany, it's not the case. So that's also one thing I wanna emphasize. And one last thing, and then I'll stop talking. But I also think it's very important for companies to think very strategically. We are in a strategic time for HR and for attracting talents. Because during the pandemic, giants of San Francisco, Facebook, Google, and Instagram and Twitter have started to launch those trends of like, okay, we will be remote forever. People will not lose their salary, aka Airbnb did that. Wherever you work, if you were in San Francisco before and you move to a remote area in US, your salary will remain the same. Now that we are past the pandemic, some of them are starting to come back to what they said, namely Facebook, for instance. And what they're saying is that talents are like, well, okay, guys, you told me I could be remote forever. I took the decision to not live in a big city anymore. And now you're telling me I have to come back to the office. Well, I'm not coming back, I'm resigning. So I think it's very important for companies to understand that the race for talent now is also going to become harder and harder, especially if the companies doesn't have a flexible policy where somehow the employee feel that he is in control or has some freedom somehow. Because I'm not saying office is bad, but I'm just saying that it's important to give options to your teams because we've lived in that time and we saw it can work. So we need to keep adapting with those changes and not come fully backwards.
Since the working spaces and the work strategy has clearly many facets, as we mentioned, one of them is HR and talent, it's education, health and safety. There are many different ones, including salaries. There is a huge discussion. There is a lot of literature on all of this and on why salaries should actually go down. Some of them are offering 5% less salary if you want to live where you're living. And clearly there are many issues. I would like to actually go to the third question, but you've, Pauline, kind of already have answered it.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's about co-working spaces. So okay. You opened up for the rest of the panel this really interesting topic of also the future of, could they co-work with offices? Could they be some kind of regional hubs for companies that don't have regional hubs? And there are other innovative ways of thinking how to maybe include them or partner with co-working places and spaces for the companies. Cristian, what do you think about the co-working spaces in the future? What's the landscape for them?
I'm not talking about co-working spaces in the future. The co-working spaces are here with us in the present. And what can I tell you? 2 weeks ago in Romania, we organized the Romanian Workplace Management Forum. And for the first time, and Pauline knows that she managed that panel, for the first time in a panel, we brought together the most important players in co-working spaces sector in Romania. We faced a very interesting discussion between them. There is already a market for co-working spaces, at least in Romania. And we have to consider three, let's say, directions for development of these co-working spaces. It's about work, so providing office or let's say providing facilities for working. It's about learning and it's about connecting, learning through education, and it's about connecting through events. So work, learn and connect. All these three, let's say, pillars are important for co-working spaces, and at least in Romania, I'm very confident that co-working spaces are here to stay for a long time.
That's right. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that conference was really interesting, and maybe we could kind of include this also, some of the findings and final results.
Anna, it's very important that right now I feel a sense of a very strong community, co-working community in Romania. Pauline can confirm this. And it's important because more or less all these co-working spaces in Romania right now are like pioneers. Mm-hmm. But it's important to have a strong sense of community and then to educate the market. This is very important.
Galina, what is the experience and what is your thinking about the co-working spaces? Is there some kind of potential partnership with companies, corporations like yours?
I'll just echo what Pauline was actually saying. I researched a little bit to get a bit more fresh data about what's happening in Bulgaria on that, above and beyond my just personal observations. And I was surprised actually to find out they're reporting only very little reduction in revenue, so like 10-15% year on year in co-working spaces. Some are even saying, some of the big ones, that they're actually expanding capacity because they see the pandemic as a reassurance of their business model. Another few trends, again, Pauline highlighted them previously. Sofia, the capital city, Varna, one of the biggest cities on the seaside, were like hubs, even regional hubs for co-working spaces. Now, more alternative, smaller places in the mountains, at the resorts, are becoming attractive for even global digital nomads who are staying there for months, also supported, of course, by the internet infrastructure. So what is also great is, I think by design, many of those, they're relatively new office spaces, and also by design, they're greener and lower waste than the traditional offices. First, because they were newer, more modern. Second, because of their very purpose. You know, they're not permanent. Companies just go rent. They're more multifunctional, you know, multi-use. Company go and rent only when they need them. So I think this is a model that it can be a bit of inspiration. I'm not saying that large companies like mine are ever going to go extremely in that direction. It could be an option for some. However, it's definitely an inspiration, and even in our company, we as we monitor, as we analyze, you know, what's happening, productivity, how collaboration is happening, and we're thinking about the next office renovation, we are taking inspiration from that and seeing how can we make the workplace more adapted to what's happening, because it's clearly there is no way of going back. Things have changed over just a couple of years, really accelerated. But again, something to again underline something one of the other panelists said. I think it's not, we keep saying the pandemic showed us this, but if I have to be very honest, it only accelerated it. I'm in HR, I've been looking at what talent, young talent wants, and actually talent even before the pandemic was showing that they're ready for this, they were demanding. And now you go to a job interview, and this is again part of my job, daily job, probably if not the first, the second question of the candidate is, are you offering, you know, flexible work, home office, because this is an expectation that is there. And of course, you can choose not to, but you would be closing some doors. And it's a decision that companies have to make, yeah.
That's right. It's not anymore just a perk, the corporate perk. It's actually part of the basic package, shall we say, and something to absolutely live with. It's interesting how you know, people are going to different places. Somebody's chosen to go to Barbados for a year, or to go to a tourist village on the shore if they have co-working spaces. So maybe if somebody wants to develop even local tourism in very small places, you know, create a co-working space. You know, if you've got greenery around, people might flock and increase some of the tourism for you, or even the quality of living. So, Kristina, what's the co-working landscape in Azerbaijan?
Very broad question, frankly speaking. There are few co-working spaces in Baku. I didn't see any in other regions, frankly speaking. I did some research last year regarding business associations and why the companies are not ready yet to unite. And I think this is also related in our behavior after so many years under USSR system, when everything was common, pushingly common. People are rather searching individualism today here. I can speak. This is really my personal approach, and that's why they want to be by themselves. They want to have their own office. They want to feel the ownership. They are not open yet enough. These several open space co-working spaces that I know, I see them usually filled by very young people. Very young generation. They are more open to that. They are more flexible. They are fine with sharing. But the decision makers in rather, how to say, sustainable or companies, more mature companies, they are not ready for that yet. Yeah, so I think it goes deep into history, and I think we are still in the beginning of this transition period. I fully agree with Galina regarding the acceleration. I think earlier or later we would come to this anyway, but still you see, even when you speak about talent acquisition, you speak about younger generation. What do we do with the experience of not so young people, so to say, with the more experienced people? We still need them in our economy. Yes, it is required, and we have to think about that as well.
That's right. Thanks so much. And let's go to this last round. So, you know, we've talked about how the work is changing, how the different aspects are being hit by the pandemic, and this acceleration, rather than not just a complete new practice, but an acceleration of something that's been happening. So are we going to get closer to more green offices, to more green buildings with all of these segments of the new reality? The offices, maybe less business travel, less commute, less I don't know, water usage, electricity, but then moving that to the individual homes where people are, or co-working spaces, or even cafes. You know, not everybody wants to go to a co-working space, but are happy to work every day in a cafe and write their Harry Potter's or company strategies from a cafe. So, Pauline, can we start with you? Do you think we're moving towards more green construction, green buildings?
I believe so, and I hope so, because the climate crisis is real and it's urgent. So everyone at any level has to do something better or for the better good. So I believe companies and especially office buildings play a very big role in this, in showing the way on how to do things more sustainably and be better at what we are doing. I think every little gesture counts. There is no small action. So when we look at co-working spaces, we also see that, for instance, there are many green co-working initiatives that are starting. More and more co-working spaces are also looking at how they can have a greener approach in their building strategy. So when they take over a building, they repurpose it. They try to look for more sustainable material, more sustainable furniture. And so we see it's not just the building itself, it's the whole ecosystem that gravitates around it. How can technology be more sustainable and thoughtful for the environment? How can the furniture we use do the same? The machine, the coffee machine, or the waste we produce, how can it be very little? Or if it's not little, how can we compensate to do things better? So I definitely believe that everyone from bottom up and from down up has a important role to play. And I think it's also one of the new role of companies is to empower the employees, to make them understand that they support them in such kind of initiatives. So I'm saying this because we see more and more co-working spaces supporting their members in green initiatives they are launching for the community. So for instance, if they're by the beach, like in Spain, we see more and more of them going for beach cleaning. So it means the actions are not just for the office, but they're also for the better good of the city.
Of the environment as a whole, that's right. Christian, what is your opinion? Are we moving towards more green buildings?
Of course, this is the right way and the normal way, because at the end of the day, green buildings are also about optimizing cost, frankly speaking. If we are reducing some consumptions, at the end of the day, from a facility manager point of view, for a, let's say, building owner, it's about reducing or maybe optimizing some cost. True, of course, as I told you, digital transformation and workplace management. And I will refer here about digitalization. This is very important if we are speaking about facility management and green buildings. Digital transformation is the use of digital technologies to change a business model. And now we are facing this, let's say, changing business models. Digital transformation is not just about technology. It's about the customer and how they feel and how are their demands. and in real estate, in workplace and facility management, digital transformation, especially for green buildings, has an impact on two main areas. First of all, changes in the core business. We are talking about new ways of working, modify the demand for infrastructure and services, but also the second area, it's about emerging technologies. For example, IoT, big data, and AI. Right now, we are facing a huge flow of data, big data coming from our buildings. Are we prepared to understand how, and are we prepared to analyze all this huge data about our buildings, about how we are working and living in these buildings? So that's why it's important to see the digital transformation as a change in core business. Yeah. Okay.
And once we get this data and analyze it and then make decisions about it and include this in our strategies. Galina, I was going to ask you the same thing. Are we moving towards green strategies of companies and also inspiring and being a steward for our employees who are not sitting in the companies, but doing some good things at home? Can companies be also the leader and inspirator and the sponsor of these activities and education for people at home as well?
I would like to believe we are, and I'm pretty confident because a lot of things are converging and happening at the same time. Yes, the pandemic was a sort of a massive proof of concept of, the environmental impact of commuting, travel, and all of that. But then at the same time, all of us remember the devastating UN climate report just published a couple of months ago. Generations are changing. So actually, at the moment, with so many things happening, there is increased pressure on companies, increased expectations from talent, from current employees, from shareholders, from banking and financing institutions to have a much larger sustainability agenda, not only on running green offices, but what I was referring earlier, ESG, environment, society, and governance. And by that, it also has to do with what I think Pauline was talking earlier. We need to look at things holistically, not to, let's say, okay, no car fleet in our company and okay, we're a green company. You just need to educate your employees, because by pushing them to use their private cars, who are probably older than what the company has invested, the impact that we together generate is probably worse. So investing in, in your employees, explaining what ESG is about, what the company is doing, what each one of us can be doing, tapping into the volunteerism that exists. This is a topic that creates huge engagement, actually. I see this in our company. So I think all of these things lined up are giving us confidence that, yes, the current climate situation is really bad. However, there is goodwill across the board in individuals, in companies, in international organizations to do some good. So I think we are heading there.
That's right. So clearly there is also a lot of knowledge, and the level of awareness is really rising, and we are looking to Glasgow and the next COP after after France, and a huge deal that was made, but not so much follow up. Even with ratifications at national governments, there wasn't too much. There wasn't too much done, but clearly maybe Glasgow conference will help us to be a step forward. Kristina, do you think that we are moving also in Azerbaijan in companies towards more green buildings, more sustainability? I'm not sure if if I'm the only one who cannot hear you. No? Maybe we lost Kristina for a second. I can get back to her if maybe she comes back. So it seems that kind of getting back to maybe wrapping up this part of the session, that we agree that there is still a lot to do. Clearly, the momentum is there. We are already moving. We just need to keep doing the good thing and do it faster and do it more. keep educating the people, and we are definitely going to get there because we don't have a choice. More sustainability is the only way we can actually do things better. If you don't mind, panel, I'll go through some of the questions, and hope you're ready. You are? So let's see. The first question that I see in our chat is for you, Galina. Are you facing more issues with productivity or creativity of staff in your environment?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this question. I mentioned earlier from the very start of the pandemic, maybe in April, a couple of months after, we started tracking all of our processes, and we have these huge dashboards of KPIs. So what we concluded was that pretty much there was some drop in productivity, some affected activities, but they were mostly related to regulatory bans, for example, to move between the cities. So some activities couldn't be done. Other than that, the teams have adapted quite well. I mentioned earlier, it's probably because our company was very well prepared to go remote. However, as things continued, we did realize that for certain activities, they're just always much better when you're face to face. So when we are putting our strategy together, when we are doing some brainstorming, some cross, functional work, we always opt for to being face to face to deliver and actually rely on all of our senses, not just a few of them. That no matter the technology, it's still a bit of a alternative interaction. So in general. Short answer to the question, no, productivity is not suffering. Actually, some people are even producing more short term. Long term, it has other effects on the well-being, on some of these other elements of the employee experience that we need to be aware of. So yeah, opportunities, but lots of traps to maybe go to fast conclusions. That a year and a half into this, we're all realizing that we need to be more careful before we just, put the big banner out and start making big claims.
Some of the statistics before the pandemic showed that people who were working offline and remotely were about 13%. It was at Stanford University study, were 13% more efficient and more productive. And but it seems that in many companies the productivity shot up so much. Because people were working, as Kristina mentioned, wall-to-wall meetings and back-to-back Zooms. So, but I think it's kind of equalized a little more now. There is another question for you, Galina, and do you see 100% remote work future ever? It's for you, so just 100%.
Yeah, short answer, no. Even though it's possible, as I said, this is an answer that would have a question that would have different answer depending on the company, on the industry. In some of the discussions we're having, we're always trying to strike the right balance between culture and productivity, between being attractive for the talent, but also being, providing a place for our employees to socialize. So I don't think there are any universal answers to this. Honestly speaking, I would personally always opt to have the face-to-face interaction. I have seen actually some industry go completely, and delivering great results. I started my career in advertising, for example, one of the very big international advertising agency, and the office was this great place where you go, this creative place where all the great things were happening. Now a lot of advertising agencies just exist online. I have a project, I recruit the copywriter, the designer, the strategist, and we deliver. We've never met, work is getting done. So it's possible. It really depends on the company, on the situation, on the project, but to go absolutely all industries, all online, unless it's some, force majeure, I don't think it will ever happen.
So one of those usual answers, it depends. So I'm not sure if Kristina's back with us. I don't see her here. There is a question for her, but let's move on. Cristian, do you think rented office space in big cities will be transformed into another purpose, for example, education or co-working space or yoga outlets or something like this. Pauline mentioned a few of these options, but so what do you think about that?
Also, it's possible. It's possible. On the other hand, as Galina mentioned, there is not an universal answer. Of course, there are some trends right now. Maybe more and more companies to move to a, let's say, 2+3 days working model. 2 days from home, 3 days from the office, or vice versa. And the people will come to the offices, to their offices, not necessarily to work from an individual workspace, but instead for let's say having some meetings and having that kind of team building sessions. Mm-hmm. For these reasons and for these activities, for sure, the companies will need more, let's say, revolutionary open spaces, to rethink the open spaces, to rethink the architecture of their spaces, to provide this innovative new workplaces.
Mm-hmm. You're actually just be a prologue for the next question that is also for you, and that new architecture. Is there a new kind of architecture that needs to be employed, be needed for future offices, as the question goes? Do you see that?
Of course, as I told before, new innovative open spaces to, let's say, support and let's say provide interesting ideas for putting together the teams, the people. This is very important. And also, at the end of the day, we have to think also about optimizing spaces. So yes, there will be new concepts. Also, there are new concepts about work from home. There are big companies, office furniture companies, also architects trying to provide new concepts as regarding work from home. Mm-hmm. So yes, there will be new developments, and for sure we can see more developments in the near future.
That's right, and new materials, new type of design, all of that.
Yes. Yes, and I will add also, we see an increase in new kind of certifications. We are talking about not just green certifications, but also well-being certifications. Mm-hmm. There are these certificates, well certificates for buildings, for organizations, and maybe we can see a synergy between green and well certifications.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting bit to look into. Pauline, there is a question for you. Do you see a huge difference in cultures concerning co-working spaces? You did mention there were different experiences. Can you tell us a bit more? Do you have your book next to you so you can show us?
I do have the book next to me. I would need to go get it, but I can do that. Yes, of course, culture plays a very important role. We discovered it even between countries that are neighboring countries. I'm French. I used to live a lot more in Germany before. And I used to be the director of a co-working space also before doing everything we are doing now. In Germany, people tend to arrive at the office very early, 8, and they would leave around 5. So if we wanted to do any community events, it would need to be just after 5 or during lunchtime so we can catch them. Whereas in France, where I used also to work at, in Paris specifically, people would arrive at the office at 10 and leave at 7. So if you do any community event at 5 or 6, it would never happen, or nobody would show up because people would say, well, we would do apéro after work, and after work means 7:30, and they stay longer at the office. So definitely culture plays a very important role. Everybody and every culture also brings its own sensitivity to co-working. So the experience is also a reflection of the culture and the person who makes the co-working space. I'm looking around me if I have the book at my fingertip, but I will go get it.
Yeah, the book. I'd love to see, like, kind of, our audience to see it. It's a lovely. Yeah. I'm glad you also featured Belgrade, because we have a lot of co-working spaces. They're mostly IT hubs, so it's kind of linked to that industry a lot more. And I'm hoping there's other industries, including creative ones.
Not just actually the one for Belgrade we have is all about creatives. So you see.
Okay. So that's good. You've got that one, the diamond.
Yes.
So that's.
So I have the book with me here. So as you said, the title is Around the World in 250 Co-working Spaces. The purpose of the book is to educate people and companies to what co-working is all about, because we don't want to make the book just for the co-working industry. But the mission of the book is really to educate people and companies to co-working and how it can be used for themselves, but also how they can implement it. They can use co-working spaces, but how they can implement it within their own companies. And the book has different kind of stories from spaces from various regions. Some stories are longer, stories are shorter, but each and every story gives you the chance to learn about co-working in different ways. And the last thing I will say about this book is that we didn't design it as a traditional book in the sense that there's no chapters, because we didn't want to be the driver of this adventure. We wanted the reader to be in the driving seat. So we've used we've used the system of hashtags, so taken the online experience and we brought it into the book, which means that at the beginning of the book, you find hashtags that bring certain co-working spaces together, let's say sustainability in the office, positive impact of co-working. And depending on what you want to learn, you can take that hashtag and move along the book and discover the stories that are specifically about this. I can share the link in the chat, but otherwise the book is available on coworkiesbook.com. I will put the link if people want to have more info, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn also.
The book has a great flow, and clearly it's very lovely designed. Christian, you've got your raised hand there.
Pauline launched her book 2 weeks ago in Romania, and we are very glad to promote her book also in Romania. On the other hand, I have a question for Galina, because you are coming from HR side, let's say, of an organization. How you see the cooperation between HR professionals and facility managers professionals in all these new trends and let's say trying to do a better workplace and a more sustainable building?
We have in Bulgaria, different industry associations that try to promote dialogues. I think dialogue can be better. I think we can learn much more, from what, for example, your association like yours are coming up with. We in Bulgaria, my particular company owns the building, but we are in a bigger business park environment. So we, frequently interact with the owner of the local business park. So as I said, both when it comes to co-working and to facility managers, you guys are at the sort of forefront following trends. We can only pick up and learn and adapt. And in my experience, we are doing little steps in that. I'll give you, for example, one of my very favorite initiatives we do in Telenor, and it started pre-pandemic, is we have this park office. As I said, we are a telco company, so during the summer for a month, we would have in some of the big parks, provide connectivity and encourage our employees to go work there and citizens to come and work a little bit like a co-working space outside. So there is lots more that we as big companies can work. We have our resources internationally, but we tend to be, a bit more sluggish than smaller companies. So opportunity for more growth and sharing.
Thank you very much,
Christian. That's good. So I don't see any more questions, and thanks for the link, Pauline. It was my great pleasure to talk to you. As you can see, it's really a lot of knowledge, just with several, but I hope well-chosen people who are actually kind of a complex panel. I think we've lost Kristina for the moment, but we will clearly continue this conversation onwards and continue to cooperate. So we had this panel that's quite a complex but complementary of cooperation, co-working, facility management, and I know that in your association, Christian, there are also architects and HR managers, and it's just a much bigger community than just pure facility management, because clearly you're working with buildings. It's a huge asset of corporations, and it's you know, kind of a wealth of a nation, of an economy, and clearly it's a lot more than just keeping and clean and
yes, well, it's about workplace and facility management. It's an integrative concept, workplace management and facility management all together.
That's right. So clearly it's much bigger deal. It seems that we've discussed these steps and tools and instruments that the companies can use to think of new and better and more effective ways of creating greener spaces, which will bring about more quality of work, life, but also the environment, which we clearly need to keep and stick to the sustainability values, and then hopefully even our children and our grandchildren can actually have a good place to live in. So it's not an intragenerational thinking. It's not just, you know, let it be good for us, but we've got to do something for other generations as well. So I hope this panel can be really useful instrument in creating some new thinking, and hopefully it'll be part of the regular reading and listening to people who want to find out more. Thanks very much, Cristian, Galina, Pauline, and Kristina, for taking some time to do this together, to share our knowledge and increase it in the synergetic effect, but also to my colleagues Ivan and Alexandra, who have helped put this together. And I hope to see you all soon on another sustainability challenge and more ideas. So thanks to the audience and thanks to all of you, and hope to see you soon then.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Anna.